Tonight on Business Live, an escalating transport fares shoot June year-on-year inflation to 29.8%, the highest in 19 years. We'll explore what's next for stable and low prices at the pumps as global Brent crude price dips by $4.
Of inflation for the month of June 2022 stood at 29.8% year-on-year inflation, indicating a 2.2 percentage point increase in rate of inflation compared to May 2022.
Also blind yet entrepreneurial, visually impaired typewriter talks about how he uses resilience despite challenges and economic hardship.
To some point when the sight was getting bad, I learned audio typing, which I didn't learn at the college. When I'm on the typewriter and you tell me, when you talk, I type.
Plus, the Joy Business Van meets up with contemporary artist Patrick Dodu, making good money from his paintings. We have all these stories and more lined up for you. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome, I'm Charles Ayitey. One of the key drivers to June's all-time high inflation is transportation. The government statistician has indicated that Ghanaians paid more for transport between June 2021 and this year by a whopping 41.6%. Now, many experts, including government, have blamed the unbearable increase in fuel prices to the prevailing sanctions on Russian oil, which has escalated gasoline costs globally. But over the past week, though, the price of global Brent crude has been dropping by almost $4 per barrel last week and has remained on this trajectory. For consumers here in Ghana, the question of why this isn't reflecting at the pumps runs top. Joining me to discuss is Dr. Yusuf Suleiman, a petroleum expert. We shall also be joined by Nana Amosi VII, Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security. We're grateful, gentlemen, that you could join us. Let me start off with you, Nana Amosi VII. Why is the case different? We are still seeing an upward trajectory at the pumps, despite what we're witnessing globally in terms of lower Brent crude prices.
And good evening to your viewers. Over the last 4 weeks, we've seen the price of gasoline and gas oil on the international market plunge by roughly 11% and 7% respectively, due to the dip in price of Brent crude oil price. And unfortunately, we are yet to see that very drop in price on the international market reflect on the local market. And this can largely be blamed on the continuous or consistent decline in the value of the cedi against the US dollar, because we use the dollar to import these products. Again, it can also be blamed on the introduction of levies that were suspended. And I can mention the UPPF that was reintroduced. Although the IES projected that fuel prices were going to drop the last 2 weeks, except for gas oil, unfortunately, prices went up just because the MPA chose to restore the UPPF on the price build-up. And so these are the two major factors. But I also can mention that although prices on international markets are dipping, the importers, being the BDCs, are still buying these products at a premium, and that premium has not dipped. And so you still have some form of another cost component in there. But let's talk about the UPPF and the CD depreciation. These are the two factors, major factors.
Indeed. Please hold on your thoughts there, because I want to bring in Dr. Ayitey Sulemana. You've heard from Nana Morsi the seventh, Doctor, and he's, putting to bear two major factors causing what we're witnessing at the Palms. Should the government take keen interest in this, and won't it be tantamount to interference in the deregulation policy?
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles, and good evening to you, and good evening to Nana out there. Yes, I just adhere to the sessions or the points put forward by Nana. Indeed, ours is different, and like he rightly explained, the fundamentals are different. Why in the US we have it going down, some within the weeks it dropped drastically, but ours, in fact, we are rather seeing upward trajectory. And the reasons are just quite this what I'm saying now. But internationally, why it's dropping internationally is the fact that I think there's this fear of recession tendencies. Because if you quite remember, we have a lot of quantitative easing and tightening going up here and there. So when these things happen, there's a tendency that especially if they don't have that much impact, there's a tendency that there will be some kind of fears of recession, and that will also dip demand by itself. And that's why it has deep global from. But coming back directly to your question, should government take key interest? Yes, government has to take every single key interest in this issue because government is a key stakeholder in this price trajectory. If you look at what is happening, what is accountable for global hike in inflation is straightforward hike in fuel prices. Energy costs is becoming very expensive. All right. So yes, I think it has come to a time that government has to relook at this deregulation policy. Deregulation policy is always one single idea or one single policy that I felt has catapulted downstream into the height that we have it now, which is controlled about 67% of our GDP. However, when a policy begins to lose its relevance, its credibility, then we can't leave it like that. And the reason why deregulation policy is not a bad policy, but what has happened to deregulation, in my opinion, it has been paralyzed. And it has been paralyzed because we have so much taxes, levies that have been put into the price buildup. And so when there's any space, any margin of space that is available for consumer to benefit, any of the players, either the government, even now the regulator, or even the business, the PSPs, oil marketing companies or BDCs, they will put in their levies and whatever just to cover up. So the deregulation in its current form, government has to take key interest because it is going to be very difficult to see consumer benefiting if we don't do anything substantial about the policy in its current state. Because every point in time, any of the three players that I mentioned, they will take advantage of the consumer. And you just seen that, no less than a person like the regulator had to also bring back, something that was taken away, brought back to its original form. That's the UPPF that Nana just mentioned. I also found it quite unfortunate. I thought the market was just too hot. I thought the regulator would have, hold on to that. Where they've held on to some of them like the primary distribution margin, which is an excellent idea. But I thought that one also, they could still keep that in that low paradigm. Other than that, we will not go into, it is very difficult for consumers to see any substantial benefit at this moment in time, even if crude oil prices substantially drop in the market. Our current trajectory, the kind of portfolio, the kind of structure that we are operating, no, consumer benefiting it, is being beneficial to the consumer could be elusive.
Indeed. Nana Morsi, you rightly heard Dr. Ayitey Sulemana stating the fact that the current portfolio that we're running in terms of our downstream petroleum sector is just not consumer friendly. The IES has been issuing out several concerns. You talk about the revamping of Tema Oil Refinery, you talk about the removal of specific taxes. What must give to ensure that whatever happens up there globally, consumers here in Ghana feel its impact?
Well, I share in the fears and concerns of Dr. Sulemana. And what I differ on is the is the fact that the deregulation is not helping. Maybe what I can say that the other mechanisms in place to support the deregulation regime and the consumer is what has failed. Because when we deregulated this market in May, June 2015, the price of diesel was 3.6 cedis per liter. At the end of December or early January 2017, the price of diesel was still 3 cedis, 60 pesos. And so you saw stability in the price of fuel for 1.5 years. You can go back and check, Charles. And so deregulation helped. But at that time, the Temoyo refinery was working. Boss was still keeping strategic fuel stock to cushion consumers when the need be. The refinery was not just managing price risk, but was managing supply risk because it was working. The price stabilization recovery levy was effective in its implementation, but today we don't have same. And there have been periods that prices have gone down, yet ours didn't go down. And unfortunately, we are going into the winter. Prices on international markets will go up. What are we going to do as a country? Temoyo refinery is here to be revived, to manage that supply risk. Boss is here to play its critical role as the holder of strategic fuel stock to manage both supply and price risk. And so, yes, there are concerns, but I will want the deregulation regime to be maintained. If for anything at all, government should manage its levies and taxes on the price buildup, and the MPA as a regulator must ensure that when the need be and becomes necessary, that we reduce prices to reflect international markets prices. It must do same to just save the consumer of this hardship. If the trend continues, Charles, I'm sorry to announce that we could be buying a liter of fuel for 18 cedis before the end of the year. And so we are going to serious situations, except government intervenes, except the MPA plays its critical role.
Indeed, Nana Musi the we're grateful that you could join us with your thoughts on this. He is the Executive Director of the IS. Let's end with you, Dr. Sulemana. So you really heard from Mr. Musi. Your final thoughts on what must give to ensure that consumers do not feel the pinch of what is happening globally?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned very critical points, which I've always mentioned on this your platform severally. Temoyo refinery is key. I mean, if we have to be able to balance our imports and exports, if we are able to, most of the imports that we are doing, if we can source it locally, it's going to help in a great deal. Right. If you look at in recent times, what has happened to US, US case would have been worse, but they're able to release about 145 million, barrels of crude oil, petroleum product into the market, just to cushion the market, to stay afloat, but we don't have that capability. Then lastly, what I would say is that, this market moving to a trajectory of too much taxation, it is not a very good thing for our nation. All right. Taxation, as I always mention, is like a double-edged sword. We have to look at taxation in the way of its ability to stimulate economic growth. I don't know if you take taxation in this current form, where we are always interested in revenue generation, without thinking about how we can stimulate economic growth with the same taxation, it's going to be difficult. And the only way taxation can stimulate economic growth is tax cuts, strategic tax cuts. Great. If we do tax cuts strategically, it will stimulate economic growth because more consumers will, at the end of the day, will consume. And then the government can even get more taxes at the end of the day. Yeah. Great. And of course, as always, we shall keep following this development to give listeners the best of analysis as and when. We're grateful, Dr. Ayitey Sulemana, for your input. But you're still watching Business Live, and still to come in the bulletin, blind yet entrepreneurial, visually impaired typewriter talks to us about resilience despite challenges and economic hardships. Do stay.
To some point when the sight was getting bad, I learned audio typing, which I didn't learn at the college. When I'm on the typewriter and you tell me, when you talk, I type.
You're welcome back. Now, how do you manage your talents, let alone your business, without the ability to see? Well, Vincent DePaul is doing just that in a way that has set him apart as one of the talented typewriting entrepreneurs in the central business district of Accra. Joy Business Beverly Brown tells us more in this report.
When was the last time you patronized the service of a typewriter? Well, with the advent of technology, many people resort to their phones and laptops to type their script. But one man continues to hold the torch of typewriting. Today, I have come to Nima to meet Mr. Vincent DePaul. He is visually impaired and he is a typewriter. He has been doing this for the past 40 years. What motivates him and how is he able to work? Let's hear his story. Business is a source of life. It dictates your survival in society. But what does it take for one to run a business? A capital and maybe being able-bodied. However, the story of Vincent DePaul is quite different. He is visually impaired. Despite this, he runs a business, one that requires someone of full sight. So how does he manage it?
First, I do touch typewriting. I used to read and type, but now getting to some point when the sight was getting bad, I learned audio typing, which I didn't learn at the college. When I'm on the typewriter and you tell me, okay, when you talk, I type. After that, you read and see whether it's okay. If it's not okay, then we redo it. That's what I do. This is the courage. This is the knob. If I make a mistake, then maybe if I call someone he cannot see, the person cannot see well into the typewriter, I roll it up. When rolling up, you know the ratchet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I roll it up so that the person can see. When if the person can see and tells me where I have gotten to, then I count and bring it down to scale. Then that's the method that also helps me.
The obvious question is, what caused his visual impairment?
I was born at Takwa in Sutawasa. I was born there after I think 1957, 58. Then we were sent to the north. Naidoli, north, the Dagat, Upper West region. And then there I was made to take care of sheep and then cows. In the bush, you know the black fly, that when it bites you get ankle. That's river blindness. So that made me have the sight problem when I got to class primary 4. So it started early, not that age has made my sight. No. At the moment, doctors say they cannot do anything about it, and the glasses too are not helping now.
Despite his lack of sight, he continues to pursue a passion which was once a vital job.
And that'll be it for Business Live. I'm Charles Ayitey. We have more stories on myjoyonline.com. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of our bulletins.